Well, hello and welcome to Pearl's Politics. Boy, do we have a show for you tonight, so we're not going to waste too much time because we have a lot to cover. All
Hmm.
right, thank y'all so much for joining us. If you haven't joined in, hope you set yourself a reminder so you can come on in and tune in. All right, so we're going to talk about local news first. Hey, Sandra, thank you so much.
Hey, Sandra.
So, thank you for joining us. So tonight, everybody got the verdict on yesterday. Everybody's talking about that.
Yeah.
And the Tyree Nichols case that went nationwide and in some places worldwide because people have, people in other countries too. So
Hmm.
I would say worldwide. And to bring you up to speed very fast, for those of you that don't know, five local Memphis City police officers were tried for um, the beating death of um, African American man, young man, on a traffic stop, and all of the police officers were African Americans. And the verdict came back yesterday, not guilty, and people and the family and friends, um, the city has been waiting on this trial for 2 years.
Yeah.
So, but everybody is upset about that. What say
Hmm.
you, Tim?
Mm. You know, um, when I heard the verdict, I was stunned just like everybody was. Um, but I went, my mind reflected back to, um, I can't remember the guy's name, but anyway, it'll come to me. So, yeah, I was very shocked, um, flabbergasted,
Mhm.
And I'm sure, like you said, people have been waiting on this for like 2 years.
Mhm.
Um, I don't think anybody saw this coming. If you look at the film, the defense lawyers were even surprised when they came back with the, no convictions
Well,
on
I
seven.
didn't watch it because I just didn't want to see some them beating him to death like that.
Uh huh.
To me, nobody has the right to beat anybody to death. I don't care who you are, whether how can you be following the law when you beat
Yeah.
somebody to death? That is not the law.
Yeah, and it took me back to the guy named Rodney King. That's the name I was trying to come up with. He was also assaulted by officers, and it was caught on tape. But he did survive. Uh, but
Oh
my
yeah,
mind, my mind,
it was about some 30 years ago. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and my mind immediately went there. And then it went to George Floyd because you can hear on the recordings that he called out for his mother the same way that George Floyd did. It was very weary, spooky like, you know. So yeah, those are the two places that my mind went, and oh man, I feel so sorry for the family.
Yeah, I do too. And if probably 75%, if not more, of the population of this city does as well.
Yeah.
Um, I was looking at the comments on different social media platforms, and some were saying, well, they're going to go to jail anyway because they were found guilty in the federal trial. But that
State
federal
trial.
trial, they pleaded guilty, but the
Mm-hmm.
trial hasn't come up yet. It's not till next month.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I want to share with y'all is that they may not necessarily uh, go to jail. And I'm going to share that right now, the screen, because it's a whole lot of facts that go into um, criminal trials.
Mm-hmm.
One thing we do know for sure is that they cannot be tried again by the city
Right.
for uh, the charges.
Yeah.
It can't be brought up by the city of Memphis.
Right.
And I really think that that was the main thing they were trying to do, simply because they wanted they didn't want. I'm trying to make this bigger. I'm trying to get to my. Hold on, I gotta reduce this just a bit, y'all. Hold on.
Okay.
hanging there with, so I can make this larger with writing. That's 500%. That's too big. Let's see. Okay, that's gonna be nice. Okay,
Yeah.
here we go. Uh,
That's
well,
it's still nice.
you can still see it.
Uh-huh.
Okay, all right. So the problem with the federal, whether or not they go to federal, whether or not they go to jail or not, is going to mean whatever happens with Supreme Court decision, because you can't the federal trial, depending on the outcome, what it is, it's supposed to take place next month. Um, they cannot appeal the city trial. There's no appeal process for that. And the reason why the city wanted to, I'm sure, the governments, politicians of the city wanted to have a not guilty verdict, is because the family is suing the city for $550 million, and all they've been talking about, all the city politicians and
Yeah.
government been talking about, that'll bankrupt the city, that'll bankrupt the city. Well,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
you reap what you sow. But here's the problem with violation of civil acts. The court, the federal charge would be violation would be based on violation of Tyree Nichols' civil rights. Okay, that would be the federal part of it. Um, Now, if the federal court does find them guilty, then the family can still proceed with their lawsuit simply because federal law trumps city law. Okay,
Hmm.
so if they win that one, they can still file a lawsuit against the
Right.
city. All right, but here's the problem. As y'all know, a lot of lawsuits have been filed against the Trump administration because they've been writing executive orders affecting people's civil rights and free speech. And disparate impact liability is one of the things that would apply to the city not guilty plea for these five police officers, or maybe even, to the federal court regarding
Hmm.
these five police officers. All right, why does Trump oppose this disparate impact liability? All right, April 23rd, he signed this executive order saying that it's a tool used by a pernicious movement to replace a merit-based decision making. Now, where he gets that terminology from, I have no clue. He probably doesn't know what it means himself. Okay, so but basically what he's saying is that there should not be any certain number of people of color that you should have to hire. There should not be a certain number of people of color that have to be admitted to college on scholarships, and so on and so on. What he's saying is that they need to earn the grade. And what he's saying is that you need to be qualified to have a position. Okay, I broke that down for you. So let's get on down here and find out, well, what's going to happen. This is what he's trying to do under his DEI efforts in the federal sector of our government. What does DEI mean? It means diversity, equity, and inclusion. In other words, equity means what? Part of our equal rights, doesn't it? All right. So he wants to do away with that. He doesn't want you to have equal rights. He wants you to earn your right. Okay.
Hmm.
All right then. So here's the problem, and what this is all going to based on, because
Okay.
it's the federal courts retain the sole authority to interpret civil rights law.
Okay.
Regardless, I want y'all to know that, regardless of Trump's executive order, the federal courts retain sole authority to interpret whether or not Tyree Nichols' civil rights have been violated or were they violated or not. Because it
Uh-huh.
says here, federal courts possess the sole authority to determine what conduct is illegal and unlawful under the Civil Rights Act. The DEI and LGBTQIA executive orders may reflect a political position that is gender fixed and binary, or that many DEI practices are illegal or unlawful. But, and now listen to this, but the Trump administration has no authority. Can I say that again? The Trump administration has no authority to dictate the law or direct how courts exercise their judicial authority to interpret the law. In this case, he cannot, no matter how many executive orders he signed, he cannot force the judges to think his way on how they interpret the civil rights law. Okay, I know a lot of people. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing for a bit. Tim, what say you? Since you found out this bit of education.
I mean, I did a little studying on the DEI, and it's really not what people think. I won't drag you down into history with it. Um, here's my thing about that. As you were reading that, and I was looking at that, it took me back to when I was doing corrections. Now, here's the thing about the police force: you have good cops, you have bad cops, and it only takes one to say rotten apple will spoil the bunch,
The whole basket.
the whole basket.
Hmm.
So what is happening now is that a lot of officers are afraid to do their job because a lot of them have got sued. Uh, and whether the force stayed with them or stay or stood behind them or not. Um, and I could remember doing a corrections job to whereas you were almost walking on eggshells. It was certain things that you could do and certain things you didn't even want to get misinterpreted. However, it did hinder and make the job harder. I feel that they should have some power, but not all power.
I'm
Yeah,
saying that's well said. I think you explained it very good to the audience.
thank you.
Yeah, it's a difficult job because it's like certain lines, like you say, because you don't ever know what kind of incident
Yeah,
will cause you to cross the line.
uh-huh.
And
Exactly.
if you're walking on eggshells, and well, basically with that problem, I mean, it's not a problem. I think it's an individual officer issue
Correct.
because an officer is supposed to know how far he can go and how far he can't go, and should not have to walk on eggshells.
Right.
But for those that didn't read the employee handbook, because you know how we get these jobs all down through the years, I can't tell you how many people have gotten screwed by their job because they didn't read the employee handbook. Okay, why do you think, y'all, that they give you an employee handbook? Nobody wants to read the small fine print,
Nobody
do we?
wants to read it.
So, and so ignorance of the law is
It's
no
not an
defense.
excuse.
It's no defense.
Yeah.
And that's the way federal judges will see it, you know. But they gonna determine it by not by what these defense attorneys said in the city trial in Memphis. They're not gonna go by that. They're gonna go by the Civil Rights Act law, what that law means, and whether or not these five guys violated that law.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can say, yeah, well, the defense won, yeah, 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 but not necessarily so.
Yeah, it's not over.
So it's not over yet. It ain't over till it's over. All
Hmm.
right. kind of like I'm watching The Walking Dead again. They say we ain't gone till we gone. That was their saying.
Right.
Okay, so um, while we're on local, I wanted to share this with y'all about crime. Everybody's so tired of crime. Well, we got a lot of it in Memphis. Memphis is like the number two or three, like up there with like Chicago,
Yep.
Chi-Town used to be,
Yep.
Michigan, all
Uh-huh.
those cities. A hit town like Memphis ain't got no business having those kind of stats like that.
Definitely not.
Okay. So I decided to research stuff. I research when I'm watching TV, like when I'm watching movies and TV, something they say something, I Google it, and that's what I like about AI. Just ask it a question, man. It's gonna give you an answer, right?
Oh yeah.
But this
Definitely.
is something I already knew that I did not have to ask AI. Yes, a significant portion of homicides in Memphis are classified as black on black crimes. While the term is sometimes used to describe the racial makeup of victims and perpetrators, local leaders suggest the focus should be on addressing systemic issues impacting black communities rather than focusing on this specific categorization. Okay, y'all been saying that for 55 years, okay? Here's the problem. It's black on black crime in the United States,
Yes.
and it's getting out of hand.
Yes.
And a lot, I read some of the comments about people making comments about how white politicians rule this city of Memphis when the population is probably 75%, you know, people of color.
Yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
they run the city and they don't care anything about black on black crime. Yeah,
Yeah.
Tim.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, I don't have to worry about other races uh, putting a gun in my face or harming me. What I have to worry about is someone that looks like me.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and it's sad. It's
Mhm.
embarrassing. Um, we have. I don't think that the parents have dropped the ball. I just think that this generation has is something that we've never seen before. They have no regards of life, whether it be yours or their own. It's a sad situation, and it seems like it's getting worse. But I've always believed that they got a place for criminals. So it's good that the MPD has now joined up with the federal investigations, and they're going to be assisting them, which is a good thing. That means that those regular criminals that go in and out of revolving doors will no longer be doing that. More than likely, they'll be receiving federal time. And that's a good thing. I think they just started maybe about a couple of weeks ago, but we're definitely going to need it. And if anybody needs it, we need it.
For sure. A lot of cities do.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to also let y'all know that we're not the only ones dealing with it. So after I did a research on because I wanted the confirmation.
Right.
I already know crime, black on black crime is out of hand in my city.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to know about the UK.
Right.
All right, so here's what I found out about the UK, and I'm really jealous. I don't know any other word to say.
Yeah.
I'm just totally jealous. While the data doesn't specifically detail black on black crime in the UK, it does show that black people are disproportionately represented in the criminal justice system, including as victims of homicide compared to their overall population percentage. This suggests a higher rate of crime victimization within the black community, but it doesn't definitely indicate a specific type of crime
Uh-huh.
like black on black crime. Can you hear
Right.
that? Now,
Yeah.
why can't we be like that?
Yeah. And I tell you another thing, their officers don't even have weapons. They don't
They
have
don't even
guns.
carry guns.
They don't carry
Right.
them.
So it just goes to show you
Yeah.
Communication is the key.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
everything all of these law enforcement agencies been talking about in the United States that hasn't worked for
Yeah.
surely in the last 30 years, they need to take some lessons from the UK and learn
Yeah.
how to communicate because that's all they do. They talk to
I
them.
did.
They have a
And
little
just.
stick.
Mm-hmm.
Look, you don't want to do that. Come on now, look. And they walk the beat and they
Yeah.
know the community
They
and
do.
they know who the troublemakers are
Mm-hmm.
and they handle them with words.
Yeah.
With words.
Yeah.
So that's how they need is to learn to communicate.
Yeah. And just on the footnote, we just did a deal with the UK. We just cut a deal with the UK.
What kind of deal?
I don't know the specifics of it, but a deal was made, and which is they're celebrating because they consider this to be a great deal as well as a big deal.
Are you talking about some of the tariffs? The tariffs?
That and something else.
But you
Um,
don't know what it was.
no, and we also made a deal with Ukraine about their minerals. Uh,
Oh, yeah. Okay. I got you.
yeah.
All right, then. Well, let's take a break. We'll come back. I put in the headlines The Butler Speaks. Trump's retired butler has finally shared what goes on in the Trump house. I think he worked for him for some years when he was like, had the apprentice show,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
So he's 78. He retired, I guess, last year. Or he might
Right.
have left this year, but he's speaking out.
Okay.
So when we come back, we're going to take a look at what the butler had to say. And the butler didn't do it, y'all. Not in this mystery, okay? All right, y'all stay tuned and we will be right back. We're just going to take a little short break because we got a lot to cover. Be
All right.
right back. All right, we are back. Okay,
Right.
speaking of crime, we've had so many families to use loved ones, and the way that crime is in these cities today, we don't ever know when it may be us or one of our loved ones. And it's embarrassing to me. I don't have to. I know one thing I can tell you for sure. My
Uh
son,
huh.
my son is not gonna have to go on a put up a GoFundMe page to try to
Okay.
get you. He won't have to do that because I've made sure that my life insurance was taken care of back in the 90s. Not only that, my grandfather bought out a purchased a life insurance policy of me when I was a baby.
Mm-hmm.
So people took pride in that. And we need
Yeah.
to start back taking pride in preparing for our final expenses, y'all. For your
Yeah.
family. It's not for you because you're not going to be
Mm-hmm.
around, but it's for your family. We say
Mm-hmm.
we love our family. So if you love them, leave them secure. Well, they're going through enough grief losing you, right?
Right.
So you want to kind of ease them along the way, help them,
Yeah.
So give me a call at 1-844-444-0102. All right, then. Thank you. Let's go and see what the butler has to say. And let's see which one of these. I got so many videos to show y'all tonight. Hoping that I get the right one. Looks like it's gonna be this one. Let's check it out.
Okay.
If it's not, I'll go back and find it.
Your support means more than anything you can even understand. It's amazing. I love you all. You're very special. This is my last.
What if a single note hidden in Trump Tower revealed a secret plan years before his presidential campaign? A mysterious discovery by his former butler raises more questions than answers. Was Trump's rise to power carefully orchestrated from the start? Stick around to uncover this shocking revelation. Who is the butler? Charles Denham, now 78, spent decades in the shadows of one of the most famous figures in modern history, Donald Trump. Hired in the early 1980s as a personal butler, Denham was a quiet observer in the Trump Tower penthouse, watching as the man he served rose to global fame. Denham was hired through a brief meeting and a quick background check, with no political ambitions or desire to become a public figure. He didn't know it then, but his role would make him a silent witness to much of Trump's early success and eventual turmoil. He served through the major shifts in Trump's personal life, as Ivana, Marla, and Melania came and went, each leaving their mark on the man behind the public persona. But Denham wasn't just performing typical butler duties. He wasn't merely serving meals or keeping the house in order. He was in the room during heated discussions, pivotal business decisions, and moments where the public never got to see the real Trump. He observed emotional highs and lows, power plays, and shifts in mood as Trump's image went from real estate mogul to reality TV star to president. Denham saw the highs, but also the lows, lawsuits, bankruptcies, and public scandals that Trump would later try to distance himself from. Yet Denham remained silent through it all. Now, decades later, he speaks up, motivated not by political reasons, but by conscience. Denham believes that America hasn't been watching a leader, but a performance. His decision to speak comes not from the politics of the moment, but from a deep awareness of how the public's perception of Trump has been shaped by what Denham saw firsthand behind closed doors. Behind Trump Tower's walls, a secret note was found. Could it hold the key to his presidential strategy? Trump's mornings were never normal. Trump's mornings, according to Denham, were nothing like the typical start of a day for most people. Each morning began with an obsession: media attention. Trump would wake up early, often before sunrise, and immediately begin sifting through stacks of newspapers, local, national, and international. It wasn't about staying informed, it was about controlling his narrative. Trump's mood depended on what he found in the press. Positive mentions would put him in a good mood, while negative headlines could turn the atmosphere tense. Staff quickly learned to recognize when the tone had shifted, when negative press reports triggered his anger. In some cases, this reaction would escalate, with Trump lashing out physically. Denham recalls a particular instance when Trump was enraged by an article that questioned his wealth. The response wasn't just anger, it was a demand for control over the situation. There was a clear hierarchy in Trump's personal staff. Denham noticed that those who flattered him or gave him the most attention were the ones who were rewarded. Praise, loyalty, and submission were what Trump valued. Those who challenged him or did not adhere to his expectations were punished with reassignment or public disfavor. This dynamic wasn't simply about management, it was about manipulation. Trump's need for adoration and control permeated every aspect of his life, and his staff were expected to play along. This behavior extended beyond his interactions with staff. Everything in Trump's world was designed to maintain a specific image. He approached daily routines like performances, where he played the lead role and everyone else played supporting parts. Trump's breakfast rituals reflected this, with a preference for fast food. It wasn't about taste, it was about control. McDonald's became a safe choice for him because it was perceived as less risky. Fewer people involved meant fewer opportunities for tampering. Staff were often tasked with retrieving identical orders from multiple locations to ensure no one could compromise the process. What was most telling was not just Trump's temper or pride, but his calculated approach to life. Denham saw Trump treat each moment like a performance, using every opportunity to solidify his image as the star of the show. Control was essential, both over his image and the people around him. Inside the golden cage. Trump's inner circle operated under an unspoken hierarchy, where loyalty was the key to survival. Those who could flatter, follow, and feed into his ego were rewarded. The rest, quietly discarded. Denham observed how quickly staff could rise or fall, often based on the smallest things. One wrong move, one poorly pressed suit, or one late delivery could cost you everything. Yet, even more than minor mistakes, it was the psychological games that shaped the atmosphere. Trump's treatment of staff was erratic. One minute, someone could be the target of harsh criticism. The next, they'd receive a generous tip. Denham described it as psychological chess. He'd insult someone to their face, calling them a loser or a failure, only to turn around the next day and give them a $100 tip. This back and forth created confusion and fear, with employees never quite knowing where they stood. They were left in a constant state of anxiety, unsure of what would trigger the next shift in mood. What added to the tension was Trump's keen ability to exploit personal weaknesses. Denham learned that Trump kept detailed files on his staff, everything from allergies to family problems. These files weren't just for reference, they were potential leverage. Trump knew who had children in expensive schools, who struggled with health issues, and who had personal secrets. And when it suited him, he'd use this information as a tool to manipulate and control. It wasn't just about managing his staff, it was about keeping them on edge, making them dependent on his approval. Denham recalls moments when Trump's temper would erupt over the smallest things, like a cold cup of coffee or a misbuttoned shirt. These seemingly minor mistakes would trigger an emotional outburst, sometimes leaving staff scrambling to make up for it. But there was a deeper game at play. Trump didn't just want things done correctly, he wanted things done his way. He wanted complete control, and staff were forced to walk a fine line of pleasing him while maintaining their jobs. In this environment, staff lived in fear. Fear of making a mistake, fear of being overlooked, fear of being discarded. At the same time, there was also the allure of favor. Being on Trump's good side meant perks, larger tips, easier workloads, public praise. But as Denham observed, this was all part of the game. It was a constant push and pull, designed to keep everyone on their toes. It wasn't just about managing his business, it was about creating a constant state of instability in his personal circle. By keeping everyone off balance, Trump ensured that his power remained absolute. Denham often felt that his role as butler was less about serving and more about watching the dynamics unfold. He observed firsthand how Trump's behavior created an atmosphere where no one felt truly safe, but everyone was desperate for approval. The women he tried to control. Trump's relationships with his wives were marked by control, manipulation, and a constant battle for power. From Ivana to Melanie, he used each woman as both a partner and a pawn in his power game. Trump's relationships with each wife were watched by Denham, who saw how their roles in his life changed over time. Denham was in the front row. His first wife, Ivana, was more than just a partner. She was also a business partner. This was how Trump and Ivana ran their empire together. She was used as an excuse, though, over time. Behind closed doors, they often fought over business decisions and the direction of their joint projects. Even though Ivana didn't like what Trump did, she stayed close to him through their kids and getting to spend time with him. But Trump's behavior toward her changed over time, making her feel more alone until he finally left her when their marriage ended. Marla Trump, Trump's second wife, brought a new element to the marriage. Emotional distance was what made their relationship unique. Marla felt like a stranger everywhere, even in her own home. Trump kept her emotionally cold and distant, far away. When Denham thought back, Marla seemed more like a friend than a serious partner. Trump's business empire was more important than hers, and their relationship lacked the depth and love that Trump had shown Ivana. Marla felt ignored and undervalued during this time, and she was always aware that she wasn't the woman who would eventually catch Trump's attention for a long time. Melanie, his third wife, was mostly quiet. Denham noticed something interesting, even though she didn't say much. Melanie kept an eye on everything. She remembered everything, and kept it all to herself. Melanie did not try to change Trump's mind like Marla or Ivana did. She just watched and took note of what he did, what he chose, and how he talked to the people around him. Melania was the long game player in many ways. She let Trump show who he really is without ever straying from the rules. A heated argument between Trump and Ivanka was one of the most important things Denham saw. A lot more of Melania is getting involved in Trump's political life. It wasn't about business. Ivanka didn't think her stepmother was doing a good job, and a fight broke out between them. Ever the peacemaker and liar, Trump tried to make things better, but Ivanka moved farther away from him. Denham said that this debate permanently changed the dynamic between Trump, Ivanka, and Melania, so marking a turning point in their relationship. From then on, Melanie had a different role in Trump's world. She learned more about how Trump's public persona worked, and her influence grew beyond that of a quiet observer. Trump needed to be in charge of all of his wives, even though each one brought something different to the marriage. The man in Denham's notes saw his relationships not as partnerships, but as ways to keep power and control. Trump had complete control over each woman and used them to further his own personal and public goals, whether by controlling their words, keeping emotional distance, or being completely dominant. Trump's emotional outbursts were often unseen by the public. Could his private battles reveal more than we thought? The outbursts you never saw on camera. Not many people have ever seen Trump's mood swings when he was alone. He showed himself to the public as sure of himself, in charge, and an undeniably strong force. In private, though, the man was crazy and often let his emotions get the best of him. Denham, who saw this for himself, says Trump could lose his cool over small things. He could get angry over a lawsuit, over a failed business deal, an honest mistake made by an employee, or even a small lighting issue during a TV interview. Trump did some very dramatic things behind the scenes while filming The Apprentice that weren't always shown on TV. For small changes like where a light was placed, or when an entrance happened, he would yell at the pros. Trump once insisted that a whole scene be cut out because he thought he looked bad. When his feelings were not in line with the image he wanted to project, they had no place in his life. One of the most shocking things that came out was that Trump was obsessed with looking perfect on camera. Denham says Trump was especially focused on making sure he never looked weak. Trump would demand that the campaign footage be edited if, say, his hand shook during a speech, or if his voice shook just a little. It wasn't just about the content. It was also about building a persona that was strong, unquestionable, and hard to weaken.
Stop that right there because I want to see what Tim got to say about his boy.
um,
um, Go ahead. I'll let you go
well,
first.
it from what I know about the great ones, right? They always have some type of tick with them. They don't. They do things totally that we think are absurd or sometimes even insane. Uh, but you got to realize if everybody could do what they could do, then everybody will be doing it. You know what I mean?
That was a
So,
good point. That's a good point right there, Tim. You got to say, I got to give you a round of applause on that. Yeah, they um, people have often referred to me when I was growing up, teenager and young adult, as eccentric, and that's what Trump reminds me of. He's an eccentric. He's a
yeah, I can agree
narcissist
with that.
too. He's narcissistic.
Yeah,
On his narcissistic side, he reminds me of King Henry VIII.
yeah,
But what I did learn from that video is I didn't know he had all those wives.
yes, yes,
And King Henry VIII had 8 wives.
yeah.
He wasn't happy with but one of them
Mm-hmm.
out of the eight, and it pretty much seems like Trump was in the same way.
Yeah,
Um, but his centricism is strange.
yeah,
And I can understand that side of a person, including Trump. I can understand wanting things to be your way. I'm a Virgo. People say I'm bossy, and Tim can confirm that. My own
Yeah,
son.
yeah,
I'm bossy. I like things done a
yeah.
certain
Oh
way.
yeah, oh yeah,
I
oh yeah.
understand that side of him,
Hmm.
but that doesn't necessarily make a person a bad person.
Yeah, we really don't care how his personal life goes. We don't care nothing about that. All we want to make sure is can he do the job and get the job done, and he's doing it. Okay, so you don't have any problems with giving the guy praise. You know what I mean? He seems honest as he could possibly be. Loyalty, you got to have that in his field. This is not. These are different people because they're not doing regular things.
Well,
You,
that's
you,
true.
you know what I
That's,
mean? So it takes a kind of extraordinary person.
yep.
And if
It
you
does.
search through history, you'll find out a lot of the great ones has crazy things going on or what people perceive them to be. Uh, that's been that way since the history of time.
Yep. Well, let's move on to tariffs.
Okay.
Well, it
I
seems
know.
like tariffs might be affecting tourism in the United States. Check this out.
Okay.
Did you know that in 2025, the global welcome mat for Americans is being pulled back? Countries that once rolled out the red carpet are now reinstating visas, demanding extra paperwork, and, in some cases, quietly turning travelers away. And these aren't remote corners of the world. They're major destinations, from sunny retiree havens to cultural hotspots. This isn't just about longer lines at immigration. It's a quiet but undeniable shift in how the world treats U.S. passport holders, and it's already impacting everyday travelers. Stay until number 5, where one popular country isn't just making it harder. They're enforcing rules that are catching even longtime visitors off guard. But before we dive in, hit that like button and subscribe. Because this isn't just a travel update, it's a reality check for anyone who still believes the American passport guarantees a warm welcome. Number 1. Brazil. In 2025, Brazil reinstated visa requirements for American travelers, and the impact is bigger than most expected. For over a decade, U.S. citizens enjoyed visa-free access to Brazil. That changed on April 10th. Now, Americans must apply ahead of time, pay a fee, and wait for approval before setting foot in the country. Officially, the move is about reciprocity, a mirror held up to U.S. visa policy for Brazilians. But beneath the surface, it's more than that. In cities like São Paulo and Brasília, many Brazilians view this change as long overdue. They've watched for years as Americans passed freely through customs, while their own applications were held up abroad. Now, they say, the rules feel more equal, and the balance more fair. Maybe it's fair, maybe it's frustration. But for the first time in decades, Americans are being treated not as VIPs, but just as visitors. Tour companies and airlines have already seen a surge in confusion. Some travelers arrived at airports unaware of the new requirement. Others canceled trips altogether after learning what was involved. Brazil isn't turning Americans away, but it's no longer making it easy for them either. Some say these changes are overdue, others call it political payback. What do you think? Whatever the reason, it's only the beginning. Number 2, Spain. Spain has long been a favorite for Americans heading to Europe. The architecture, the food, the coastlines, all wrapped in an easygoing, sun-drenched experience. And for a while, it felt like everyone was welcome. But in 2025, the welcome is starting to feel conditional. It's not about tourist visas. Most Americans can still enter without one. But if you plan to stay longer, work remotely, or relocate, the tone is changing fast. Here's what's new. Rejections for the non-lucrative visa, the one Americans rely on to retire or live abroad, surged 40% last year. And 2025's leaked rules reveal the toughest shift yet. Proof of €60,000 in savings, nearly double the current threshold. This isn't a guess. It's from Spain's own immigration data. For longtime expats and new applicants alike, the backlog isn't just paperwork. It's a wall. In cities like Valencia and Barcelona, local media have covered protests about rent spikes and housing shortages. The anger isn't aimed directly at Americans, but the term extranjeros ricos, wealthy foreigners, is showing up more often. Spain is still beautiful, still friendly, but that friendliness now comes with more questions, more paperwork, and more quiet resentment. For Americans who thought Europe would always offer a soft landing, this is the year that assumption gets tested. And if Spain is shifting the tone, the next country is stamping it in policy. Number 3, South Korea. In 2025, South Korea didn't slam the door on Americans, but they did install a lock. The KETA system is now mandatory. You can't just show up with a passport anymore. You need pre-approval through an electronic screening process that decides whether you can even board the plane. But this isn't just about paperwork. It's about posture. Since KETA launched, over 22,000 U.S. applicants were denied KETA approval, sometimes over a blurry passport photo or missing hotel booking. South Korea is shifting from hospitality to hesitation. The red carpet is still there, but only if you've been pre-cleared to walk on it. Travelers without KETA have been denied boarding. Others report long delays or unexplained rejections that show up weeks later. It's not personal, but it feels deliberate. And beneath it all is something deeper, a sense that South Korea is becoming more selective. Not because of crime, not because of conflict, but because it can. To many locals, it's not anti-American. It's pro-boundary, a way to protect culture, resources, and identity in a world that feels increasingly exposed. For Americans, it's a change that's easy to miss, until the door quietly stops opening. And if South Korea is asking for paperwork, the next country is quietly asking whether you still belong. Number 4, Japan. Japan has long been one of the most respected destinations for American travelers. Clean, safe, and deeply rooted in a culture of quiet respect, it offered a sense of order few places could match. But in 2025, that quiet hospitality feels quieter than usual. There's no official ban, no sweeping change, but more Americans are reporting something subtle: longer waits at immigration, more questions, and in rare cases, being turned away, even with valid paperwork. Japanese immigration attorneys have noted a rise in rejections for visitors with vague itineraries or frequent entries, especially since mid-2024. It's not widespread, but it's enough that travel forums and agencies are noticing. And in late 2024, an American tourist was arrested in Tokyo for spray painting a shrine gate, an incident that made national headlines and sparked public concern over cultural disrespect from foreign travelers. Japan has always been protective of its identity, but with rising tourism and growing pressure on local communities, that protectiveness now feels more personal. Locals haven't turned hostile, but the warmth has faded. Americans who once felt like honored guests now feel more like outsiders. Japan isn't changing the rules, but it is changing the welcome. That step back might be quiet, but the next country draws a line in public. Number 5, Indonesia. For years, Bali was a dream for Americans chasing sunshine, freedom, and affordable living. It was more than a destination. It was a lifestyle. One where visas felt like a formality, and no one asked too many questions. But that's changed. In 2025, Indonesian authorities have cracked down hard on foreign visitors, especially digital nomads and long-stay travelers who overstayed their welcome. And Americans are often at the center of it. Here's the reality. Bali deported 211 Americans in just the first 3 months of 2024, many for overstaying tourist visas by only a few weeks. And in 2025, officials are now tracking digital nomads through Instagram Reels and TikTok workation posts. One wrong hashtag, and you could be on the next flight out. You won't hear the word Americans in official briefings. But when deportation lists go viral, the pattern is hard to ignore. Locals aren't against tourists, but they are against entitlement, rising rent, disrespect, loud behavior, people treating the island like it's theirs. Indonesia still wants visitors, but now it's setting boundaries. And if you cross them, even accidentally, the consequences come fast. There are no warnings anymore, just headlines, exit stamps, and a flight out you didn't plan for. And the next country? Their scrutiny starts before you even land. Number 6, Turkey. Turkey has always been a crossroads between East and West tradition. Did you know that in 2025, the global welcome mat for Americans?
Okay. I'm going to stop there right there because it goes on. But
Okay.
I just wanted to give you all an example
Mm-hmm.
of the problem that Trump's administration has caused for the rich.
Okay.
Because it's not us poor folk that go to those places. It's not us lower middle class people that can afford those trips. It's the rich folk that like to go to these places.
You know
Now
what?
they're being kicked out. They're not welcome anymore, and it's going to get
Yeah.
worse.
Well, here's the thing. You know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results.
Mm.
We look, if you in any of these places or anywhere that ain't home, you need to come home. We are in a tariff war.
You said that right, Tim. Let me give you a round of applause for that.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't need to be all over there. We got a tariff war going on. We got a lot of stuff going on. We need to be trying to sweep around our own front door. So look, you can miss the beaches for however long it takes. We trying to take care of business. We ain't
Gotta
got
get one
time.
of them plastic swimming pools out there in the yard,
Yeah,
huh?
yeah. We ain't got time for vacation. That means everybody vacation cut short. We got business to take care of.
I like that. Now, let's move on to international.
Okay.
Internationally, um, you said something about Ukraine and the mineral issue with the Ukraine war,
Yeah.
but Russia is winning on that side with President Trump. Uh, Trump is favoring Russia, and it's like I told you guys for the past year. It takes a gangster to know a gangster.
Yeah.
Trump respects Putin, and Putin
Yeah.
respects Trump.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why he's siding with Putin, because Putin is a bigger gangster than Zelensky.
It
Okay?
makes sense to me.
All right. So that's the reason why I made a post that since the ICC, International Court of Justice, IJC, International Court of Justice, ICJ, and the UN can't do nothing with Netanyahu, it's
Yeah.
going to take Putin.
Yeah.
Because Putin can make one phone call to Trump and tell him, look, you're going to have to do something with that
Yeah.
gangster over there that thinking that mini me over there that's trying to be a gangster. Got to
Yeah.
do something with him. And he will.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. He will.
because, so, and he's kind of putting back because he's supposed to be visiting Qatar within 10 days, Saudi Arabia within, while he's over there in some other place, but he's not going to Israel. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't blame him because Israel is burning right now with fire. And I'm going to show you all that in a minute. That
Yeah.
fire's still going on.
Yeah.
And, but the UK, a lot of the countries that were siding with the United States on Netanyahu's and Israel's side, because that man has not let food, humanitarian aid, water, electricity, medicine, has shut it down now for 70 days after the ceasefire. People
Yeah.
don't have the starvation, babies dying from malnutrition. It's just insane.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
And so finally, some of the countries are speaking out against Netanyahu and Israel. But the one that surprised me was the UK, because as you know, the UK, well, some of you don't know, the UK is was the United States. I'm gonna say was until the signal chat went out because uh, poor little brain Pete Hegseth
Yeah.
messed up and was talking about the European, the EU Union, and the Europeans and the UK on the signal chat so bad they just fell
Right.
out. They fell out with the United States.
Right. Right.
But they before that they were the United States' biggest ally. But
Right.
check out what they're saying now in the House of Commons about the United States and Israel. And here we go. Listen.
Okay.
Up to now, the excuse has been that we've got to wait until negotiations are complete. There are no negotiations. All that we have is extremist settlers trying to force out Palestinian people from their villages in the West Bank, which I've seen with my own eyes. In the name of God, why can't we give the Palestinian people some hope?
So maybe he can be the one who surprises me, gets to his feet and says that the plan as laid out by Benjamin Netanyahu is tantamount to ethnic cleansing. Will he do that, yes or no?
We now learn from a government minister, an Israeli government minister, that Gaza is to be entirely destroyed. And we're watching the live streaming starvation of an entire people. Now, the minister talks about his anguish, and I know it's genuine, but can he not see what the majority of the House can see, that he's facing a catastrophic failure of government policy?
In the past year, 100,000 tons of bombs have been dropped on Gaza, the equivalent of 5 times of the power of the nuclear weapons used over Hiroshima and Nagasaki 80 years ago. That's resulted in the death of at least 60,000 people. And on top of that, we're now going to have the complete invasion of Gaza by Israel. At what point will the government actually cease all arms supplies and military cooperation with Israel, cease the use of RAF Akrotiri, and above all, stop the export of any parts for F-35 jets, which have been complicit in the killing of 60,000 people in Gaza?
Statement, Minister Hamish Faulkner.
With your permission, Madam Deputy Speaker, I'll make a statement on the Middle East. Yesterday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced that the Israeli Security Cabinet has approved a plan to expand and intensify Israel's military operations in Gaza. He said that the Israeli Defense Force operations will extend across more of Gaza. Tactics will no longer involve short raids, with the implication that Israel will hold the ground it takes. Reports suggest that the plans could include full military occupation of the Gaza Strip. Prime Minister Netanyahu said that Gaza's population will be moved for its protection. Tens of thousands of reservists are being called up. In parallel, the Security Cabinet reportedly approved a plan to deliver aid through private companies. This comes at a time, Madam Deputy Speaker, when the scale of civilian suffering and humanitarian need is already intolerable. More than 52,000 people have now been killed in Gaza. Israel has fully blocked the entry of humanitarian aid for over 2 months. The World Food Programme says their food stockpile has been exhausted. These announcements from the Israeli government have rightly sparked grave concern that this conflict, which has already wrought so much bloodshed and suffering, may enter a dangerous new phase. I know that concern will be felt right across the House. Let me make the government position crystal clear. We strongly oppose the expansion of Israel's operations. Any attempt to annex land in Gaza would be unacceptable. Palestinian territory must not be reduced nor subjected to any demographic change. We want this war to end. We want an immediate ceasefire, the release of all hostages, the urgent provision of humanitarian aid, and a pathway to a political solution. Madam Deputy Speaker, all of us recognise that Hamas continues to hold hostages in the cruelest fashion. Their actions show the complete disregard for the interests of the Palestinian people. Hamas must not divert aid for their own financial gain or use civilian infrastructure for military purposes. We repeat our demand for the immediate release of the hostages. But an expansion of this conflict is not the route to achieve their safe return. That is why it is so strongly opposed by so many hostage families themselves. It is negotiations which offer the best hope of ending the agony of those waiting for loved ones held captive, alleviating the suffering of civilians, and ending Hamas's control of Gaza. It is evident that Hamas cannot be defeated through military means alone. An expansion of military operations will result in the deaths of more innocent civilians and put the hostages at yet greater risk. The fighting must stop. The government has said since day one in office that the only way to ensure a path towards long-term peace and stability is an immediate ceasefire, the release of hostages, better protection of civilians, and significantly more aid entering Gaza. Diplomacy is how we ensure security for Israelis and Palestinians, not more bloodshed. All the people of this region deserve to live in peace, prosperity, and security. We urge all parties to return urgently to talks, implement the ceasefire agreement in full, and work towards a permanent peace. We continue to use our full diplomatic weight to bring about a ceasefire and end the suffering. After more than 2 months of aid into Gaza being blocked, Palestinians continue to face immense suffering. Essential supplies of food and medicine are either no longer available or quickly running out. As the United Nations has already said, it is hard to see how, if implemented, the new Israeli plan to deliver aid through private companies will be consistent with humanitarian principles and meet the scale of the need. We need urgent clarity from the Israeli government on their intentions. We must remember what is at stake. These humanitarian principles matter for every conflict around the world. They should be applied consistently in every war zone. As we have said repeatedly, humanitarian aid must never be used as a political tool, and Israel is bound under international law to allow the unhindered passage of humanitarian aid. I repeat my call for Israel to engage with partners to allow for a rapid and unhindered resurgence of the flow of aid into Gaza. We reiterate our outrage at recent strikes by Israeli forces on humanitarian workers, on infrastructure and healthcare facilities. Israel must do far more to protect the civilian population and humanitarian workers and hold to account those who are responsible. Over a year since the appalling attack on the World Central Kitchen, in which 3 British nationals were tragically killed, we continue to press for a...
Okay, I'm gonna stop that right there because I just want y'all to get a gist of
Yeah.
the UK is finally speaking up now after so many people have been killed, and they keep using that 50,000 number of people. He did say 60,000, but I was hearing. Y'all know, well, people they know me, and I've been saying on my shows.
Mm-hmm.
I've been watching what has been going on in Gaza ever since October the 7th.
Yeah. You have.
And
You have.
and and listen, this time last year of 2024 it was 50,000. So I'm
Mm.
pretty sure that within a year's time it's another 50,000. So
Yeah.
I wish that they would stop lying about that number.
Right.
That is not correct. It cannot be 50,000
A year
in
later.
May of 2024 and then now 50,000 still in
Mm.
May of 2025
Right.
when the bombing has never stopped.
It never stop.
So don't stop lying about that.
Yeah.
That upsets me. I didn't mean to
Yeah.
shout, but I'm just saying. But
Yeah.
it
I'm sure that people are upset with it too. You know, um, it doesn't matter where you're from. We don't like the government. Stop lying to us.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Well,
that's not asking a lot, to be honest.
mhm, mhm. You're right,
Hmm.
Tim. And Israel has been lying ever since October 7th
Yeah.
because as it finally came out in the secret black box that Netanyahu was the one that pulled the soldiers from the entrance where the Hamas entered. He pulled
Mm.
them from there that Saturday night.
Mm.
I mean that Friday night to go and surround him while he was attending some type of big gala affair.
Mm.
So, and not only that, the generals had been warned 2 weeks prior that
Right.
an attack was coming. And they said, "Oh no, now we got this security. We so secure they could never happen."
Yeah,
So it's not like they didn't know and wasn't
yeah,
warned. They just
yeah,
ignored it because they thought that they were so powerful and undestroyable.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah. Getting back to the war, not to change the subject, but Trump has said, well, he said these guys are going at each other tooth and nail, and he said he think maybe they done fought it out and they're ready to sit down. Uh, Yeah, because it's just everybody's ready for it to stop. But Trump couldn't. He said he could not cut a deal with them because those two were so hatred and so much anger towards each other.
Yeah.
And now he's saying, well, look, at this point, you guys are pretty much done. It's time to sit down and stop that war.
Well, Trump, I heard him speaking, saying, and saying that. Well, maybe I didn't hear him speak. I think I read it in some news clippings online that he said that he had made a deal with the Houthis. That was a lie. Because I also watched Al Jazeera and watched the Houthis general speaking, said that they had not made no deal with Trump. They hadn't even talked to him. And this guy right here, I think this is the video that talks about that, but it is talking about Gaza. Let's listen.
Okay, so Donald Trump today stunned everyone by announcing that the US was stopping its bombing campaign in Yemen, as, in his words, the Houthis had asked him not to bomb them. He went on to say that the Houthis promised him to never target the US ships in the Red Sea again. When a reporter asked him to give more details, he refused, stating that he couldn't reveal his source. Watch this clip from his press interaction at the Oval Office first. He was hosting the newly elected Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney at the Oval Office when he made this claim. Watch the clip first.
We had some very good news last night. The Houthis have announced that they are not, or they've announced to us at least, that they don't want to fight anymore. They just don't want to fight. And we will honor that. And we will stop the bombings. And they have capitulated, but more importantly, we will take their word. They say they will not be blowing up ships anymore. And that's what the purpose of what we were doing. So that's just news. We just found out about that. So I think that's very, very positive. They were knocking out a lot of ships going, as you know, sailing beautifully down the various seas. It wasn't just the canal. It was a lot of other places. And I will accept their word, and we are going to stop the bombing of the Houthis. Effective immediately, and Marco, you'll let everybody know that, okay? Do you have something to say about that, by the way? It's a pretty big announcement.
Yeah, this was always a freedom of navigation issue. These guys, these are, a band of individuals with advanced weaponry that were threatening global shipping, and the job was to get that to stop. And if it's going to stop, then we can stop. And I think it's an important development.
And we'll have maybe before we're going to, as you know, the Middle East, Saudi Arabia. We're going to UAE and Qatar, and that'll be, I guess, Monday night. Some of you are coming with us. I think before then we're going to have a very, very big announcement to make, like as big as it gets, and I won't tell you on what, but it's going to, and it's very positive. I'd tell you if it was negative or positive. I can't keep that out. It is really, really positive. And that announcement will be made either Thursday or Friday or Monday before we leave. But it'll be one of the most important announcements that have been made in many years about a certain subject, very important subject. So you'll all be here.
On the Houthis, can you tell us a bit more about the deal that you've reached with the Houthis that you mentioned?
No, it's not a deal. They've said, please don't bomb us anymore, and we're not going to attack your ships.
And where did you hear about that?
It doesn't matter where I hear it. The very good source, I could tell you. Very, very good source. Would you say, Marco? I would say pretty good, right, JD? A very good source. No, they don't want to be. They don't want to be. They don't want to be bombed anymore. I sort of thought that would happen.
As you can see from his claims and the body language, he implies that the Houthis had begged him to stop bombing them. It was as if Houthis had succumbed to the power of Trump and wanted peace with the US, and yet he wouldn't give any more details. Moments later, State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce gave it away when she said that the Sultanate of Oman had mediated to achieve the ceasefire between the two sides. In her foolishness, she ended up embarrassing Trump when a reporter told her the Houthis had denied Trump's claims. Her reply was she laughed like a fool and said, "Of course, they are terrorists." So they are terrorists, but her own president was proudly telling the world about reaching an agreement with them. Wait until I give you more details. You will see just what an embarrassment this has been for.
Okay, I just wanted y'all to hear that. But I actually did hear the general when it was translated, because I don't speak Arabic or whatever the Houthis speak, but they had the translation under the bottom of what he was saying, and he did say that no, they have not made a deal with the U.S. With those dying enemies. That's what he said.
Yeah.
He didn't
Okay.
say so. So I know for that, and you could tell, like the man said that was reporting that for that particular station. I watch a lot of stations, a lot of platform stations, so that I can actually hear both sides, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but I could tell myself from the body language that Trump was lying, and then he's gonna try to get some support for his lie, for his lie from J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio didn't know what the hell was going on. Talking about that's good development. that,
Yeah.
right, Mark, right, Rubio, right, J.D. Yeah, they your right hand men, but
Yeah. Yeah. I
but
mean,
and they support your lie. What else could they do? You don't call
yeah,
them out in public.
yeah. I mean, we're talking about presidents. You know what I mean? Uh, they're not all honest. They're not perfect. That's the word I'm looking for.
They're
They're
not
not
honest. You
perfect.
said it right the first time. They're not all honest. You said it right the first
Well,
time. And it's not
that's
just
true.
Trump. It's been all the rest of them before us, before Trump.
Yeah.
So you're right about that.
Yeah. I mean, nobody's perfect. Yeah, he got flaws. He got flaws, and he might have did lie on that. But
Nobody did. He did.
yeah, okay.
And I tell
But
you the reason why I know. Because last week, the Houthis shot down three more, not not counting the one that fell off the ship, the jet flight a fighter that fell
hmm
off the ship. They shot down three more $6 million jets.
hmm
Shut them down.
hmm
That's why Trump wants to end it because he's losing too much money in it.
hmm
And that's gonna be the other reason why he pulls out of Netanyahu's corner too. And I'll show y'all Israel is burning, so I know that's why he's not going to Israel. He's going all around Israel on his next 10-day visit, but he ain't stopping in Israel to see Netanyahu with all that fire
I
burning out.
wouldn't either. I wouldn't either. Why
Yeah,
would I?
that just show you he's not senile. He got plenty of sense, doesn't
Yeah,
he?
why would I do that? Make
but
it make
uh,
sense.
but that's the reason. Now I'll tell you the development. I will tell you the development that Trump got through the grapevine about the Houthis.
What is that?
They let it know. They let it be known worldwide. If y'all would watched other channels, even France or Canadian channels and other channels, instead of watching your local news and your CBS and your ABCs and your NBCs, you would find out the truth of what was really going on. The Houthis informed commanders, spokesperson for the Houthis, informed them that this is the new development. They have now a total count of 8 million soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
8 million
Mm-hmm.
in Yemen, which is the poorest country in the whole wide world.
Mm-hmm.
But they have a large population,
Mm-hmm.
and they have 8 million as of last month, the end of last month. That's the development that he found out about, and they've been,
Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm.
So, do we have 8 million soldiers?
Mhm.
No,
We're huge. I don't know exactly how many we
no,
got, but we are huge.
we ain't
Now,
got that many.
China has the biggest.
Oh yeah,
China has the
yeah,
biggest.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Well, no, not necessarily. Probably China and Iran.
Now,
Probably.
you know, yeah, I stay with China because China has been that way a long time. It's been
Yeah,
one
they have.
one with the
They have.
most.
They've been that way a
Yeah,
long time.
yeah.
But I'm just telling you, that was the new that's what he heard through the grapevine. Talking about, I'm not gonna tell you my source.
Well,
That's what the
we
source told him.
we'll look for it next week and see what we got.
And all we can do is wait on it.
Wait and see what we
Meanwhile,
got.
Israel is burning still.
Yeah,
I told
yeah,
y'all, God don't like ugly.
yeah.
God said, this is what God is saying, and I heard it from the heavens. Uh, these presidents, these leaders, these politicians, and these organizations, talking about International Court of Justice and all them other things, won't stop this man from killing these people.
Yeah.
I'm gonna burn it down just like I did Sodom and Gomorrah. Take a look
Hmm.
at this.
طلع النار.
Almost 1 hour, 1.5 hours na, no? Pag to tumawid, pag yan tumawid sa isang halera nung ano, bahay, wala, alert tayo, aalis tayo.
بارك فيك. Narahta yung kejap.
All right. If that wasn't enough, here's also at the same time the city is burning. Let me tell you, I'm showing you how God works. At the same time the city was burning, they had a flood. Part of the city was flooding, and the other part of it had an ice storm, and the other part of it had a tornado. Watch this.
And 2 weeks ago, just almost 2,500 square kilometers of forest fire of nearby fires that are affecting emerged into the record-setting monster. It began.
Karma itu nyata. Itu hal yang pantas untuk negara Zionis Israel. Ya, bagaimana tidak, Israel kembali bergulat dengan api terburuk dalam sejarah. Namun, kali ini berbeda jauh. Jika tadinya menghanguskan berhektar-hektar hutan dan menghancurkan ribuan pohon serta hewan, kondisi ini diperburuk oleh kombinasi mematikan angin topan hingga 100 mil per jam akibat kekeringan ekstrim dan infrastruktur air yang tak mampu menopang. Maka, kali ini sebuah api berkobar di sekitar tempat penduduk berkumpul di tengah kota yang padat. Orang-orang mendadak muncul kobaran api, ditambah dengan putaran tornado yang mengerikan. Tak hanya itu saja, ternyata di bagian kota lain juga dilaporkan dilanda banjir hingga ada yang membeku. Lantas, bagaimana respons dari penduduk-penduduk Israel serta apa penyebabnya? Mari kita bahas bersama sampai tuntas. Sebelumnya, Israel telah lebih dulu didera bencana besar ketika api melalap perbukitan hijau di wilayah Yerusalem. Sekitar 3.000 hektar hutan berubah menjadi lautan bara. Pohon-pohon yang telah tumbuh puluhan tahun hangus dalam hitungan jam saja. Binatang liar kehilangan habitatnya, sementara langit berubah gelap menjadi saksi sunyi dari kemarahan alam. Banyak yang menyebut sebagai azab, balasan dari langit atas agresi yang tak kunjung henti, terutama terhadap Gaza yang terus dihujani bom, rudal dan peluru yang menyasar ke warga sipil, wanita hingga anak-anak yang tak punya dosa. Dan seakan alam belum cukup, tornado dahsyat ikut menyambangi negeri Zionis itu. Hiasi langit dengan warna merah darah seperti neraka yang turun ke bumi. Namun, rupanya itu barulah awal. Kini, alam sepertinya tak sudi berhenti memberikan peringatan. Tornado kembali datang, tapi kali ini bukan di pelosok hutan, melainkan di pusat kota, di antara gedung-gedung tinggi, di tengah permukiman padat manusia. Yang mengerikan, pusaran angin kali ini tak datang sendiri. Ia membawa serta api yang berkobar besar, liar dan membabi buta. Api dan angin bersatu menciptakan pemandangan yang bahkan tak biasa, terekam jelas dalam video yang beredar luas. Warga panik bukan main. Banyak yang berlarian berteriak, sementara sebagian memilih merekam kejadian itu. Mungkin karena lokasi kejadiannya yang tak jauh dari tempat tinggal, mereka telah berubah menjadi kekaguman akan kedahsyatan peristiwa tersebut. Namun, yang menyayat hati, terdengar teriakan dari mereka yang enggan pergi. Bukan karena tak bisa, tetapi mungkin karena ada yang terjebak. Mungkin di dalam gedung, di balik asap dan puing-puing yang berjatuhan, warga menolak meninggalkan mereka yang tertinggal. Memilih bertahan meski maut ada di depan mata. Mengutip keterangan dari unggahan yang beredar, fenomena ini kemungkinan besar terjadi di wilayah Ramat Gan, sebuah wilayah kontroversial, ilegal menurut banyak pihak internasional, dan menjadi titik panas yang selalu diawasi oleh lawan-lawan Israel. Ramat Gan bukan sekadar kota, melainkan simbol perluasan yang penuh sengketa. Maka dari itu, pertanyaan terbesar muncul, dari mana datangnya api? Sumbernya diduga berasal dari rudal-rudal yang ditembakkan dari Yaman, tepatnya dari kelompok Houthi yang akhir-akhir ini intensif mengarah ke wilayah Israel, termasuk Tel Aviv. Bisa jadi, rudal itu meledak menciptakan titik api yang menyebar dengan cepat. Namun, bukan hanya api yang membawa petaka. Angin yang sedang berhembus kencang pada saat bersamaan menjadikan kobaran tersebut menjalar dan berputar menciptakan kombinasi mengerikan, tornado api. Fenomena langka tapi bukan mustahil. Dan kini, bencana itu benar-benar nyata di atas tanah Israel. Banjir es di wilayah lain Israel. Jika sebelumnya api membakar hutan-hutan di perbukitan Yerusalem, lalu angin melingkar menjadi pusaran ganas yang membakar kota, kini Israel harus menghadapi kekuatan alam ketiga, yaitu air. Namun, bukan air biasa. Air yang turun dari langit kali ini tidak hanya dalam bentukan hujan, tetapi juga berupa es batu yang mengguyur tanah gersang dan bahkan membeku menjadi es seperti musim dingin di Eropa. Fenomena ini terjadi di Dimona, sebuah kota kecil di selatan Israel yang terletak di tengah-tengah gurun Negev. Wilayah yang selama ini dikenal sebagai tanah kering dan panas mendadak berubah menjadi lautan air. Dengan video viral yang beredar, memperlihatkan jalanan yang terendam banjir dengan aliran deras yang menyeret kendaraan dan menggenangi rumah-rumah. Yang lebih mengejutkan, terlihat pula lapisan es menutupi sebagian halaman rumah warga. Fenomena yang sangat jarang terjadi di wilayah gurun. Warga yang menyaksikan langsung kejadian ini merekamnya dengan gemetar. Beberapa bahkan menyebut ini sebagai pemandangan tak masuk akal bagi tanah gurun.
All right, I'm gonna stop it there. Did you see it?
Yeah.
Flood,
Mhm.
ice, hail, and
Yeah.
fire.
Yeah.
I don't know, but one
Mm.
power that has that much power. They can't blame the flood on Hamas or the
Yeah.
Houthis. They can't
Yeah.
blame. They tried to blame the fire on Hamas and the Houthis, but they
Yeah.
can't blame the flood on Hamas and the Houthis. And the Houthis. They can't blame the ice and the hail
Mm.
on Hamas and the Houthis.
Yeah.
They got to recognize that you got to be doing
Yeah.
wrong. If God has brought all this down
Yeah.
on your one country, 4, 5, wind, water, and hail, and
Yeah.
wind,
Yeah.
all in the same day and week.
Yeah. That's
You,
all the elements. Hmm.
that's God
Yeah.
trying to tell you something.
They know what it
God
is.
trying to tell you something.
Yeah. That and where you gonna run when the world on fire?
That world is on fire. All
Hmm.
right, then that's where we're gonna leave it with y'all. Tim, closing comments. We had to stay
Oh
a
wow,
long time
great
because we had
show.
a lot to cover. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, great show. We had a lot to cover, but we need to cover it, and we hope you guys enjoyed it because we surely did.
yeah.
With that, and thank you all for hanging in with us. And be sure to come back. Matter of fact, we're live again tomorrow.
We're
Come
live
back.
again tomorrow. We got some very important information for you. Social Security
Hmm.
has big changes that y'all need to know about for yourself or your loved ones, as well as Medicare that you need to know about for yourself or your loved ones. We'll be showing y'all that information tomorrow, so make sure you spread the word.
Yeah.
And we love y'all. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see y'all next week. Good night.
Bye.